you don't want to know what Neil talks about during break. Let's just say, like Jake and I have like perfectly normal human conversations. You know what I mean? Like, and then. And then Neil sits down and he's like, so this wart growing on mine. And it's like, we've never shared a beer together, even virtually on like playing a session like this. I honestly, maybe, if you check the Yarv VODs, hard maybe. Very infrequently. Very infrequently. When I was playing Yarv before, I think I went live at 2 and got off at 6. So, yeah, it's getting hard maybe. But in my 6, don't forget, I was always a hard out for me because my wife and daughter would be arriving. But, anyways, so hi. Let's go jumping in back into this. 2 feet. Pencil dive. You guys are oh my God, you were muted. So,
What, me?
You guys were muted.
So you were just having a conversation with yourself.
I pressed the button and it didn't unmute you, so I was, yeah. But they heard me. So
Professional streamer!
now you're muted. So anyways, they're gone, so on and so forth. You guys have a lot of shit you wanted to take care of. What was the next thing you wanted to approach? Because you know that they are returning soon, Arcane Congress. A month has not finished passing yet. What was the next thing you wanted to approach?
So they're coming at the end of this month, yeah?
Sometime before the end of the month, correct.
We need to go and slaughter all the goblins, then. Goblins aren't people.
I mean, you can easily send that as a task for for one of your advisors to do. Kith will handle this.
Yeah, we'll send Kithel the guard, but I think Juan and Rayrin would also want to go.
Gotcha. Okay. So, what would your approach to this be? Would you want to send scouts to once again reprocure information? Would you just want to bring a large force with you? And how violent do you want it to be, or what's the approach overall? We'll change to combat music for this conversation.
So we know that, one, advise me on this, as you're technically, a little bit more. We know that Kithel has less presence in a forest. My reference for that is the vines wouldn't try and eat him in the same way that they do a normal person. So Kithel can, and we also know he's wise and he knows his way around. So he can lead a group of guards, of soldiers around a decent distance away from the goblin camp, have them spread out in a net and closing towards them, while one, Rayrin, and another group of soldiers just approach the camp.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just be a simple straight, you sneak up on them if you can, you shoot as many of them as you can, and then you kill what's left. If any run, they're picked up by Kithel and the net as they close in.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty good plan. Is there no way we could perhaps herd them towards the Owlbear Cave?
There's quite a distance, isn't it? It's like what? Let's see.
Is it?
16 miles?
Ah,
No,
okay. Yeah,
it's 2 hexes.
that's a fair distance.
So it's like 30 something miles, right? We're on 16, or is it 12 now?
They're 12 for the hexes now.
Okay, so it's 24 miles.
Why don't we switch to that overlay so everybody else can see what you guys are talking about? Yeah, that works. There you go. And feel free to use your arrows, whatever else you need to, but I think it's pretty obvious. If you run them across your lands, not just directly over Cursefall, that could work faster than if you bring them around the corner. You know what I'm saying?
Might be a little hard to actually make them go.
Yeah,
that far.
to go that far.
Have we had any scout reports on how many there are?
You had received reports beforehand of there being a few dozen, but you don't know exactly how many. It's not like it's a crazy large tribe or group or band or whatever, but it's also not like run in there with a pitchfork and kill them, you know what I mean? So it's something you'd have to approach.
So let's say a maximum of 30.
Mm-hmm. It'd be a very good experience for new recruits.
Yeah, I agree.
Starting to get the battle experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we bring
Leon.
Leon as well so he can direct it?
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I'm 50-50.
Maybe
Leon.
leave Kithul and take.
I'd want Kithul to come more than Leon, because this is
I
this
trust
is like
Kithul more at home though, rather than because Valorant's gone. Like Elliot's not there. Who's gonna
that's
be
true.
there?
Yeah, that's true. On the other hand, Leon's a man of his word and will have sworn his oaths by now to serve the country.
Mhm.
So I don't think there's a large risk from leaving Leon and taking Kithul. But I just feel like because this is more of a localized, like this is something that the guard will have to do reasonably regularly, maybe, to defend.
One would say, like, he'd say, I feel like it's a good test for us to gauge Leon and how, he organizes and commands troops. Like, it'd be interesting to see if he lives up to the hype.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. I'll defer to one on this one then.
Okay. So, I mean, I like the idea of you, like you said, you're grabbing recruits. You've been training them for a short period of time, anyways. Utilizing this as a means to give them a bit of training. Also, getting what's his name, Leon, and you've heard stories. You believe what he says, and so on and so forth. But you can actually see him in action. Besides, how long has it been? It's a bit rusty. And Kithul being there, because that's significant too. But Kithul probably less being the aggressive side, but more the making sure they don't get too close in case things go awry side. It's all on of it. Honestly, it's a really good plan if it plays out well.
Yep. And obviously, like Rayron would suggest this plan, but he would defer to Leon if he wanted made changes, etc. Because this plan obviously works with people who are seasoned and won't run. If you're a recruit and you run away, then it kind of fails,
What's that military mind, Leon?
So when you pull Leon in for this actual conversation, so you actually pull in the advisors for this conversation after having discussed it with each other. It's kind of like you lay out the plans. All right, so last we've had scouts check out this area over here, and we've seen goblins ranging in anywhere between, say, 2 to 3 dozen goblins in the area. They don't seem to be super blah, 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 blah. Also in this region over here, there seems to be an owlbear, blah, 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 that whole thing. And you kind of like putting it together, and you explain all that stuff and show this is the plan that we've come up with, and you guys push forward the plan and try to show it that way. Leon watches this out quietly, just standing over the table. Nobody really sits at the table when you're having discussion. Quietly sitting over the table and just watches everything, taking it all in. And so you finish it off with literally, you look to him. I think what you just said, Neil, was, how do you like that plan, Leon?
It was, I'll defer to your expertise.
I'll defer to your expertise, thank you. How do you defer to that expertise, Leon? There's another couple moments of pause while he's thinking, and he says, it's a plan that could work. However, in my experience when dealing with goblin tribes, when you attack them as opposed to them attacking you, they stand and defend until they flee. And when they flee, they tend to do so in any and every direction they could possibly go. Not really caring if they abandon others or if others abandon them. It'd make it hard to direct them as a force to that one location. And even more so, goblins are very familiar with caves and it's the dangers of the wild. It is more than likely that they would notice the owlbears in the cave prior to actually entering the cave themselves, and would avoid it. Maybe one of their number would be lost, assuming we can get the whole tribe over there, but they're keen enough to avoid owlbears in general. Usually they suffer the most damage when owlbears stumble across them as opposed to the other way around, because that's when they're dumb enough to think they can defend their own lands.
Wait, I'm confused. Didn't we scrap that plan?
Yeah, but that's fine because having his opinion on it is good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss something?
No. Well, we like relatively quickly pushed that plan to the wayside, but it's fine.
Yeah,
We
because
enjoy having
it
his
was kind
opinion.
of too far really for them to go.
Oh, gotcha. So he says, so you did not have a secondary plan. It was also, I'm deferring to your expertise. He says,
No, we did. It was the one Rayron had suggested to begin with.
which was what? I'm so sorry, Rayron. Just send the boys to go there and attack them, right?
Yeah. Form the net to stop people running.
Correct.
That was the primary plan. That's what you're talking about. The secondary plan was the luring the goblins to the. But we kind of decided to scrap that.
Gotcha.
But that's fine. It doesn't matter.
My apologies. Okay, so moving on with the idea of primary secondary plan. He says, your plan is not without merit. It's just backwards. It'd be easier to hone the anger of one as opposed to many. And then you can use the soldiers as a bit of a net coming in from flanked positions, teaching them the merits of the flanking and catching retreating soldiers. Now, it is important to note that these are goblins, so the likelihood of them throwing down and surrendering and that actually meaning leaving peacefully and amicably and not coming back in the future is very unlikely. It's more of throwing down and surrender in hopes of one day coming back and still killing you. I think it would be a better plan if we were to go and raise the ire of a hibernating owlbear, bring it to the goblins, having them being foolish enough to try to defend it, suffering whatever number of casualties they do in doing so. When they turn to flee, they realize that they've been surrounded and are ambushed by our soldiers, ready to finish the job. Having had the goblins out of the way and a somewhat injured owlbear, we would then be able to move in and finish the job, all in one fell swoop.
2 birds with 1 stone.
No.
I like it. That deals with both problems. That would be a large weight off my plate if we were to do that. Make any preparations you need.
He nods and he says, I will say, however, that with this plan that I'm suggesting, we would have to direct Kithul, and he looks at Kithul with like a respectful nod. It looks like slightly differently than what you had originally suggested. Kithul, instead of acting as defense towards the city, would have to also head up his own group against these soldiers. I think it's important that Kithul learns the merits of also having these kind of defensive positions, since we're going to be dropping a line around. Even though we're acting as a bit of an attack, we're also setting up a net to catch those coming within. No, with absolutely no disrespect meant towards you, Kithul. As far as I understand, you've never actually commanded over a battlefield in the past. I think it's important that you learn these formations and commands. It's important that you learn how it is that you give these orders to the troops, especially if you're going to be the lives of the citizens are going to rely on your words. And Kithul, somebody that's not easily offended, nods. Sure, yeah, cool. Yes, you know. Then he looks back to the to one, and says, "Does the chosen of the blade find that this plan to be?"
Rorin would also be looking because he realizes, like, in his excitement, he was like, "Oh yeah, this is great, let's do it," and then was like, "Oh wait." So he's also been watching one.
One is kind of deep in thought, and he just says, who and how is going to lead the owlbear?
Well, we would need somebody who is strong enough, brave enough, to piss off an owlbear and lead it angrily over the course of miles to some unsuspecting goblins. Brave heroes who are not so threatened by putting themselves in harm's way. And he says so with a bit of a coyness to him.
Are you suggesting perhaps we choose someone?
I think they've already been chosen.
Great.
It's either that or they can take the recruits.
So on horseback, I would assume.
He thinks for a second. Horseback would be a brilliant plan if you were trying to actually escape. However, if you're waking a creature from its hibernation, it's more likely that it's going to look to thwart you to the side and return to it than it is to actually follow you that distance. You need to be able to keep it pissed off and wanting to continue following you, lest it just returns to its home. Gotta pull that aggro, boys.
With respect, bears can run at a considerable pace. Owlbears
as well.
Slower?
No.
I'm not sure we could outrun one without clever use of trees. Once it begins to tire, we might be all right. But the initial sprint would be...
You have to understand that bears do move rapidly over short distances. And these are miles. I imagine you can't run for that many miles yourself before becoming exhausted. We'll have to have little checkpoints. Having some of the recruits along the way that can distract it temporarily, maybe even a couple of pock shots, injuring it themselves, sending it potentially into the goblins injured itself, giving you boys a moment to pull ahead some more, and then recatch the scent and move on. We are luring the thing.
I believe it might be beneficial for maybe a couple of the recruits to stay close by and be leading horses if things go awry.
Nods.
Well, I'm not sure how good of a... Let me rephrase. I'm not sure how this will go, but let's give it a try.
Agreed. Let's see what we can do, I suppose.
Okay. So you guys are kind of planning this out, moving it, so on and so forth. And literally, as you're having this discussion inside of your thing, kind of like moving the pieces forward and discussing how many soldiers, how far along the training they are. You know, honestly, these soldiers, I'm glad that they've recruited, but perhaps we shouldn't use them. They have less than a week's time training. Let's let them stay into the camps. And okay, we'll bring these ones over here. And honestly, I do have to say that Philip over there, he's actually done an incredible job. We can give him a position of a bit of a command and test out his leadership before we give him a promotion. That kind of like conversations going back and forth between you guys. When all of a sudden you literally hear a from the doorway.
Look towards it.
To the surprise of the guard that was standing at the doorway himself, turning around at like a bit of a start and everybody looking in that direction, you see Thunwhiddle and Thunwaddle standing there.
One looks to Rayron.
We're in the mat room, yeah?
Yep. They've walked into your castle, into your throne room, across the throne room, and up the stairs, and over towards the map room.
Hello, gentlemen. I don't believe you were invited in.
Well, this is a great opportunity for you to correct that then.
Yes, why don't you go wait outside the door, and I will invite you in.
You're not sure which is which, but one looks to the other one, and the other one, kind of like not looking back at him, but continuing to look at you, says, "Is now a bad time for a meeting?"
No, I just wish to adhere to proper decorum.
You say, "I wish to adhere to proper decorum." They both kind of, nod. Again, not simultaneously, but together. They both nod, and they just turn and walk out without saying anything else.
Raymond turns back to the map room with a scowl.
Rather forward of them.
Leon, if you would finish the preparations for this, I would be most grateful. It seems Juan and I will be busy for a time.
Okay. He of course says it's not going to be too much of a concern. The biggest concern I have is going to be the weapons that we have for the soldiers. Unfortunately, our smithy has not been established yet. Our smith herself has left, and the supply of weapons we have is more of what we've been able to procure from your past adventures or find along the way, as opposed to having crafted. And even most of those have been used for a bit of training, and so they're damaged. It's going to be more of inventorying than planning. I won't bog you with the details.
Thank you. Raren would. I know it's not much, but he has on him a spare short sword, a spare longbow, and he would hand those over.
Yep. Like spare equipment there. No problem. Okay. And you guys go walking out, and the gnomes are immediately standing like inside your throne room, like right in front of the chairs. So as you guys come walking out of down the stairwell, and they see you there, one of them looks up, sees you guys coming, looks to the other one, and nods towards the door. And they turn and they walk out of the throne room, and it's like the door. They shut it behind themselves. The snap. Not like an angry snap, but it's definitely a pertinent shut.
Raren will take a seat in his throne.
One does the same.
And then he'll turn and look at the arcane eye and say, "You may enter."
They don't do anything. Nothing happens. One of the guard that's standing inside here kind of stands for a couple extra moments, like, "Did you want me to open the door then, sir?"
Go right ahead.
Oh, sorry, my lord. And he goes over and he opens the door. And as he opens the door, he says, "Their Majesties, chosen of the blade and chosen of the quill, are inviting these two in. Your Majesties, this is Thunwhiddle and Thunwaddle of the Arcane Congress." And the two of them walk in, again, in unison, but not simultaneously, step by step. And walk in, and as they stand before you, they both give a bit of a deep bow. And then one of them says before you, "It's a pleasure to meet another one of the lords. It's unfortunate that the third seems to be missing from our meeting once again."
It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. Unfortunately, Valrin cannot be here to make this. However, I'm sure you understand that the affairs of state keep him rather busy.
You're the one from Malta, then?
He raises an eyebrow and says, "I'm from Valrin."
He doesn't respond to that. Have you updated the laws in your books? And I never sent Neil, just so chat knows. Neil never got like a list of laws for me. There was no time for that. So he says to you, "Have you updated the laws in your books?" Now, again, the laws of the Arcane Congress, and I have a bit of it written elsewhere, are in one of the PDFs or whatever they've done before. Can be a bit like, there's some things that are kind of like no shit Sherlock. Like there's no utilizing of evocation magics within or necromancy magics within places of dense population. There's no utilizing of combat magics in places of peace and not war. And so there's things that are like no shit, like kind of like logical stuff. It's just you have to have it in the books to make sure that people know what the laws are, so you can properly enact them against people being dumb. But then there are laws in there too, like you can't know of two different schools. Any schools have to have representatives from them. Quarterly updates need to be sent of the magical capacity of the lands towards the Arcane Congress. You must always provide a room, like a specialized, like a dedicated room of stay within your kingdom for them to stay in for while they're doing their inspections. Their inspections can last from anywhere to being as short as an hour's time to as long as they need it. Their stays are always done at the Neil, your microphone keeps brushing your shirt. If you want.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Just say So my apologies. For as long as they stay, it's always at your expense that they stay there. There's all these things that are put in place that link directly towards Arcane Congress, but then linking directly towards how it impacts the people. It is the responsibility of the people to report things that they see awry to the Arcane Congress. Not reporting makes you as guilty as the person that is actually breaking the law itself. You know, you become an accomplice, if not aiding in the measure, and so. And so on. So these are kind of like where the laws fall. And then there's always, of course, the ridiculous ones. Anybody who's found guilty of certain rungs of not just misdemeanors, but actual crimes are forfeited to the Arcane Congress for the death by experimentation. Like, you no longer, the citizenship in any nation does not protect you. They collect you. You belong to them now. You know, things like that. You're also not allowed to use magics. So there's also, again, other goodly laws, like you're not allowed to use magics to enact slavery. You're not allowed to bend the minds of people to be slaves of yours, and so on and so forth. You know, things like that. Like, you can have slaves. You can have magics that bends the minds, but you're not allowed to bend the minds of people to make them slaves using magic. So.
Does Parendel do that?
Parendel does not bend the minds of people to make them slaves. They just have both those things. And the reason why they have that kind of stuff in place, as you might imagine, it's like logically. So you can't walk up to a strong-minded, strong-back, like noble and be like, by the way, you're now my servant. And like walking around like puppies saying, please, may I have some more? You know, it's like, no, you can't do that.
Flipping that for my private collection. Yeah, so it has a significant impact on the country and the people within it, and you can't cast spells legally over 6th level.
So it is, let me make sure I actually say this correctly to you. I'm sorry, Neil. 1 second, sir. 1 second. You there. Down, over. So the way that spells work in the world of, or at least the land of Aeroth, the continent of Aeroth, in accordance to the Arcane Congress, there are, what are they called? 4 echelons of spells, of spellcasting. There's Neophyte, which is both cantrips or orisons, but they don't really dictate. They do dictate divine magics, but more so arcane, because they're called the Arcane Congress. Neophyte, which is cantrips and 1st level spells. So right now, the only echelon that our party has access to is Neophytes, the Neophyte echelon. After that is Adroit, which is spells from 2nd to 4th level. Anybody can cast spells from 2nd to 4th level. Nobody questions, and Neophyte and Adroit, no problem. When you learn spells as Savant, you have to actually have been schooled by and have permission of the Arcane Congress to know and utilize spells of the Savant, 5th to 7th level tier. So you have to get proper licensing from them to do so. Because otherwise it's really fucking dangerous. I mean, even an Adroit spell is Fireball, which can kill everybody in a tavern, right? Like, that's really dangerous. So you have to have licensing to have Savant spells. And preeminent spells, which is 8th and 9th level spells, you are not allowed to have that magics without being a member of the Arcane Congress and ... and even then of a certain ... So it's just straight up not allowed. You'd be hard pressed to get access to that. As for what you were saying, Adroit, no problem, Savant with licensing, but then there's also if a spell, so whether or not you have access to Savant spells, if you actively know or actively carry on you or actively cast within a short period of time frame, within 1 day's time frame, 2 spells of opposing schools. So let's say you happen to, today you cast a spell of necromancy, but you're also carrying a scroll of illusion on you. That's 2 spells of opposing schools represented on you within 1 day. You are that's the law that you were thinking of. You are in violation of the law of scrutiny, in which case you are now going to forfeit yourself to death by experimentation. And that's, again, of Savant school or higher, so 5th level spells or higher. What are the opposing schools, you ask? For those of you that aren't old school nerds that know 1st and 2nd edition, what this world refers to as Toile is the opposing schools of enchantment and illusion. Then there's Lare, which is opposing schools of abjuration, conjuration. Then there's Yavire, which is evocation and necromancy. I'm sorry, I said illusion, I meant evocation and necromancy. And then there's Hrive, which is divination and transmutation. So those are the academies that they have. All right, cool.
Unfortunately, we've been rather busy as of late, and we haven't got around to assessing the laws.
God damn it, I did it wrong. I'm so sorry. Those were the schools and what they focus on. I'm so sorry. The actual opposing. Necromancy and illusion oppose each other. Divination, conjuration oppose each other. Transmutation, abjuration, evocation, and enchantment. That's how they oppose each other. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Neil.
I said it.
I actually didn't hear you because I was correcting myself and I'm popping it in the chat.
I apologize, gentlemen, but unfortunately we've been rather busy as of late and we haven't quite got round to assessing the laws that you left in our care.
In other words, you were refusing to adhere to the laws of the Arcane Congress in a nation wherein its rulers are both aware of the laws of the Arcane Congress and are casters of the arcane arts as well.
What are the laws of the Arcane Congress?
He will produce a second identical to the first book of laws that was left here last time. He produces it from within like a pack that he has with him, pulls it out and says, I know for a fact that this was left with Chosen of the Blade last time we were here, and it seems as though he's more of Chosen of Ignorance.
I'm aware that it was left. I simply have not had the time to read it.
In other words, you're saying that the laws of this land, or the rules of this land, are choosing to ignore the laws of the Arcane Congress.
I simply haven't had time. I believe... Shall we go through the laws, see whether any of them have been broken?
He dismisses your question with literally a hand wave and says, the people are living dangerous lives. They're ignorant of what dangers they could find themselves in due to your ineptitude in your leadership. And beyond that, you are in violation of the laws of the Arcane Congress as it stands. We're not going to have another situation like we do in Malta, are we?
You don't want another situation like you have in Malta? Would that stretch your resources? Tax you a little bit, perhaps? Make you have to work a little bit harder? Maybe loosen your grip on the other countries? No, perhaps not. I suggest that you start treating us with respect.
We did treat you with respect. We've treated you with respect until you chose to ignore the rules.
One says, you did not. I hosted you, I met with you in good faith, and you spied on our throne room. I had no problem speaking with the other leaders. However, I discerned what you have done, so I will take a step back, and leave it to Rayron. However, any goodwill you had with me is now gone, unless you remove it now.
One of them looks to the other one, and the other one kind of like side eyes back at him, not fully turning his head or anything like that. And the one that originally looked over kind of gives a bit of a nod. And he takes a step forward, and with his arm fully outstretched, as tall as he can reach, and even slightly raising his heels off the ground a little bit, he reaches into the sky like he's grabbing at something that just isn't there. He reaches up, his hand open, and kind of like spins it until he comes down to like he's holding something small. And as he pulls his hand down, what comes into view, which was otherwise not visible before, is like a small marble that is sitting there. And he says, do you mean this?
One looks to Rayron and...
I mean, I've just cast Detect Magic. Was that the sensor that he just removed?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do.
It's now glowing magic, but not an aura of active magics, but instead of an item that has its own innate magics to it. So he says, The Arcane Congress needs to know who it is that the Arcane Congress is dealing with. Are you a threat? Are you an ally? Or are you somewhere in between?
Well, one says, I had extremely good intentions. I met with you. I heard what you had to say. I didn't seem to see the issue. However, there is no need to spy on affairs of state with someone you have just met.
We have no interest in your affairs of state, simply those of your arcane traditions. We are happy
Speak
to...
politely and we'll get somewhere. If you want to just be pompous, then this is going nowhere. Well, I was willing to engage with you. However, I just... And one, you can see he's starting to get frustrated, and he just looks to Rayron and just waves to him.
We are happy, like, picking up literally where kind of like you had spoken over where he was trying to cut you off. We are happy to to announce that the Arcane Congress does not see your estates to be one that is intending to be aggressive, simply ignorant of the laws. And so, you do not need to be looked after, because you are not a threat. Yet.
Good. I'm pleased to hear it.
As for the laws, I trust that they will be enacted into your it will be written into the laws of the land soon.
You wish for us to follow your laws, yes?
We wish for you to follow the laws of Eroth, since that happens to be the lands that we are standing on.
I think you'll find that all of Eroth doesn't follow your laws.
There is one upstart.
Yes. You wish to follow our laws, correct?
While we are within your lands, as was requested for us to leave, as was requested for us to remove the device, we will gladly follow the laws of your lands, just as we expect you to follow the laws of everyone's land.
In that case, I will strike a bargain with you. I will write in the laws of your land if you agree to stay here and be tried for treason, at which point I will execute the two of you, and then problem solved.
One cannot be held, one cannot be tried for treason.
What you committed was treason. Do you agree? You follow the laws of the land you are in. You said this to me.
One cannot be tried for treason within a land that they have no fealty. These are not our lands.
Very well. You wish to be tried for something else?
What accusation would you bring before Thundwaddle and I?
If nothing else, you're spies.
Spies on behalf of?
Who knows? We have a variety of enemies. That's not the point. Just because you stole, it doesn't matter who you stole from. It's the fact that you committed the act.
You're grasping at straws in an attempt to flex your might because you're in a small budding nation. Is this how you want this first interaction to go?
You follow the laws of the land you're in. I quote.
Mm-hmm. He says mm-hmm and nods.
Do you think it was appropriate for you to place that censer within the throne room of this kingdom?
Yes.
On what grounds?
He reiterates exactly what he said beforehand about analyzing whether or not, almost as though it was something written in a textbook somewhere.
I would agree, perhaps, if you had done this in a kingdom that has already agreed with the laws of the Arcane Congress. As we have not, I believe that's a different matter.
Are you going to write the laws into the laws of the land, or are you not?
I think Juan and I probably need to discuss that with Valrin. However, as he's not here, I could perhaps give you my word that that would be put in. However, I'm not particularly inclined to. You've not exactly been amenable to anything we've suggested. You've spied on us. You've been rude. You clearly have disdain for our kingdom, for our people, for us.
So I should take this as a no.
No, I don't think so. Would you agree to be tried for the crimes brought against you?
It's a simple question. We need a 2-letter answer or a 3.
In this kingdom, I ask the questions and you answer first.
He looks. They kind of look to each other, and one of them nods. As opposed to the one that's been speaking the whole while, the other one speaks up and says, "Very well, then we'll mark it down as a no, and we'll treat it as such. Thank you very much, your Majesties,
One
for your
person
time."
stands up and says, This is a kingdom of 3 rulers. And while Rayron is making every point which is completely valid, in my opinion, in the way, especially in the way you've treated us, would you give me 10 minutes or so to confer with my fellow ruler? I do not wish to dismiss you in this way. However, this is by majority. So, if you don't mind, give us some time for discussion. And then he says, "Are there any more of these orbs in the city?"
No. And yes, we'd be more than happy to give you your several moments' time to discuss with one another. We understand that there are 3 people that this is the second one they're speaking as opposed to the one that was being aggressive before. We understand that there are 3 rulers of this land, and the majority likely takes rule. Without one being here, it falls to the 2 of you to decide unanimously or not. Which case, have your moment. And thank you so much for giving us audience.
He says, "I do not wish to be spied on in any way while we talk."
As an act of good faith, he takes he reaches over and takes the marble from the other guy's hand, the one that pulled it down, and tosses it over to you.
Can I break it?
If you'd like to, yeah.
I'll break it.
So you kind of like throw it on the ground and just you even have to use your
hit it with half my axe, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, so even just like the handle of your you break the thing. Okay, shatter it. It's just dust. With your detect magic still active, you can see that the magic is very quickly fading away. If there's any magic left over inside the dust after it finishes fading, it's going to be extremely faint to say the least. And with a bow, the 2 of them then turn and wait outside the chamber doors. The guard shuts the doors and makes like a face, like a.
One looks to Rayron and he says, "You have my apologies, Rayron, but there is something that I wish to discuss with you. I believe the map room would be well suited to these discussions. The old man did offer us protection. So let's, if you don't mind."
Yes. Seeking his counsel on this might be a good idea. I fear I do not like the Arcane Congress. This, to me,
nor do I after the reckless display.
This, to me, is akin to your worshippers of Lady Erevar. In my country, these people oppress and affect. They pull strings to make our lives harder. They do everything they can to make us suffer for not being the ones under their thumb. I find it difficult now to consider assigning another nation to that fate.
I understand. Let's discuss it in the map room.
So you guys are retired to the map room, wherein you still have Kithel and Leon in there discussing with things. Unfortunately, you don't have. Oh, sorry, and Edric would be in there as well, because Edric would be, of course, talking about the financial aspect of trying to procure more weapons before going into this thing, even if he's thinking, you know what I mean? So the three of them are in there still. They look like they're pretty much finishing up their discussion down to more or less like kind of BSing with one another.
I would ask them to please leave.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, they when you say, gentlemen, could you please give us the space, or however it is you phrase it, Leon would say, as a matter of fact, my lord, the discussion is already completed. We are more of discussing whether or not, and then he realizes that you're not in a joking mood, and he just nods and shuts himself up and walks out.
Okay, close the doors behind them and call out for the old man Valorant. He
I
responded.
just realized, I was like, who's he calling for? And then I realized what you're talking about. You call for the man. A moment passes. Call for him again. Another moment passes, and right as you're starting to get like a little, he just once again kind of like stepping out of nowhere appears and says, it's the first time I've been summoned. Hello.
You have my apologies. Did we get his name?
Never.
He goes, my apologies. What do we call you?
That's fine. Don't need to apologize. Why is it that you've... And he kind of like looks towards the door and says, oh,
You're not going to come out and tell us your name is something to do with some horrible beast in the past, right?
No. No horrible beasts in the past. More of a lifelong forgotten and... a life once forgotten that I wish to stay that way. I do not want to be... I do not want to be remembered as what I was, but simply to make a life for myself in the future. This is nothing to hold any bearing on you or any impact they would have on you or your kingdom. It's simply for my own sake, my own sanity, my own business.
Once, when he looked at the door, one would say, do you see anything?
An interesting scenario playing out.
Well, can we cut being cryptic and can you speak of what you're talking about?
He'll smile to that and says, the Congress, they're here. I didn't know what they were, but now that I see them, I understand.
Are they watching us now?
No, I see them.
Okay. He just says, are we safe in this room from their prying eyes, ears, nose?
You have the means of detecting such things yourself, but I don't see any magic watching in after us.
Then he turns to Raider and he just says, my apologies for interrupting you in the throne room. I did not mean to lessen your authority in any way, but I just thought to say before we made more enemies than we already have.
It was a wise decision.
Worth discussion. However, if you feel as strongly in this way as I do about mine, he says, you have given me that freedom, so I will, of course, extend the courtesy to you. Do you have any questions? Maybe this... He points and says, old man may help with the decision.
I do agree with your assessment. I think if we were to make enemies of the Arcane Congress, it would put too much pressure on us. We're already pressured on multiple sides, and it's not something we can deal with. If they started funneling money into Houtgwen, God knows what would happen. Therefore, perhaps we wait, and we abide by their laws. However, I would not wish to just take this simply as is. They have slighted us. It seems that one of the gnomes would agree to this. He seemed far more amenable than the other one. Perhaps it was zealous of me to consider them spies. However,
Oh, but that's what they were.
They have done a crime within our nation. In respect of their position, I would not put them through any formal hearing or punish them through a standard means. However, I think if one of them was to stay for a year, perhaps, then it would assist us greatly in enacting these laws.
I don't think you can separate them.
No? You think you can't, or you think they don't like it?
The Arcane Congress was something that didn't exactly exist in the times before. From my memory of them, at least I never knew of the Arcane Congress back then. Maybe their reach was far smaller than to come to these lands. Either way, I see them now, and I can see the magics woven between them. They seem artificially fused. Their minds are put together. Their souls are put together. I think it's meant to be a temporary link. Imagine if you were to send spies to work in unison, partners to accomplish a task, how they would work together and always have each other's best interests in mind as they went. Like that, but fused together with magics. This is what I see woven between them. It's very strange magics, to say the least. But separating them, I don't think is really an option, because they're never really separated from one another.
I don't believe they'll both stay either, so...
There are options. There are options, though. You can't easily fool them. One of them, just kind of looking at them as best as I can, one of them clearly is a master of what you would know as divination magics, and the other is clearly a master of what you would know as abjuration magics. They look into things and protect others. That's what they do. But they also have understandings between the two of them of other. My apologies. They have understandings of other. I'm sorry. One is a master of divination magic. The other of conjuration magic, of summoning things. But they also have secondary skills that they hone their skills on. They're not easily confused or tricked just because of what it is that they focus their lives on. But they can still be dealt with. They can be removed. Do you understand?
Rowan raises an eyebrow.
Were they to leave, were they to be killed, and someone were to look after them, they would magically discover that they're dead. This is their assignment. That would possibly raise alarms. Were they to be vanished to another plane of existence, and someone to look after them, they would find them gone, probably assumed dead. And that would raise suspicions. This is their last task. But if they were to be removed, but still within this plane of existence, perhaps then it would take a while for them to discover what had happened.
He looks to Raymond and says, I don't really understand, but how would that help us?
If you are removing them from the kingdom, then they cannot be found in the kingdom. But more of removing them is removing their ever having come to the kingdom. Should someone come along and they can't find them, they could simply inquire as to whether or not they've been found. Mundanely, and he looks to one with a knowing look, by other means, and inevitably will find out that they've been here, and very likely something went awry, and then you would have to bring forward the full might or anger or however it is they handle these situations. Again, I'm not familiar with the Arcane Congress against you. But if their presence were to be removed, then they would find nothing. I can do that for you.
Are you talking about altering people's minds?
Including your own. All that would be taken is their having come here. Nothing else. I will take it from your subjects' minds completely. from your minds in such a way that it can be placed back. For them, it'll be removed. For you, it'll be sealed.
Why'd they just send somebody else to do the exact same thing?
I don't know how their structure works. Maybe it'll take months, maybe it'll take years. I don't know. What I do know is that if they send somebody looking, you won't have answers for them. If they try to find them, they won't be here.
So if they are sealed in my mind, what if they try and find it?
Somebody might be able to find it, but I have a strong feeling that their manipulation of magics, despite being some arcane congress, are not going to be as strong as mine. The magic of this land does flow through me.
I personally would completely like it gone from my mind. There's no reason for me to have it locked away.
If that is what you would like, I will 100% adhere to your wishes.
Raren, what are you thinking?
I would agree that if we were to do this, it would be better to have any information of this removed entirely, with no way of getting it back. However, we're talking about tampering with our minds. Also, we're merely delaying the problem.
That's my thoughts exactly.
Even in a year's time, the country won't have the resources to survive or push away Arcane Congress.
Did you notice what he said about somebody judging that we're not a threat? Do you think maybe somebody else was watching through the device that was placed there? Because they actually seemed surprised that we knew. He looks to the other guy and he says, "Is that a possibility? Could somebody have already seen these events?"
There was a scrying device in the other room. I can see the remnants of its powders. I believe you broke it. I don't know the details of the device as it was when it was together. Had I the device, perhaps I could... It's possible someone that wasn't them was looking into it. Again, I don't know their structure and who would do such a thing. However, I can say that one of the two of them is very heavily trained in divination magics themselves. I don't know how likely it is that someone else would do the scrying when they're the ones tasked with this job. I'm just thinking logically.
He said somebody else has made the decision, though. So it leads me to at least think they've been in contact with somebody.
Perhaps correspondence?
I agree with one.
In which case they would have told them that they had came.
I appreciate the out. This problem is too dangerous to deal with it in this way. However, I wouldn't let them get away with what they've done for free. You said that these two are bonded, yes?
I'm not familiar with what it is that they did or how it is that they did it. This is strange to me, but yes.
Yes. Could you... You're capable of adjusting memories, no? To quite a high degree.
I can.
Could you cause them to suffer pain whenever they think of Idir?
He thinks for a few moments.
Starting from as soon as we adhere to the laws.
I don't think I can do exactly what you're asking. That seems...
Petty.
Not petty. I would do it if I could, because you're asking of it, but I don't think that kind of... To control one's thoughts like that, removing them, even altering them, sure. But to have a thought bring pain...
You're not controlling them. You're simply altering them.
No, I understand that. But to have it bring pain... I that is beyond my means.
Perhaps fear. Something easier to recall. Certain smells and such can trigger such strong responses. I wish to make them think of their time here as unpleasant.
That could be done with an altering of the thoughts. If the thoughts of Idir were altered well enough that they find recalling them to pull up other thoughts as well. So I'm
Yes, yes, do that. Let's not be petty. Don't make them suffer. Simply make their memories fuzzy, difficult to recall. They recall other things. You know, they came to Adir for this and they had a funny brown ale that they hadn't had before. Simply toy with them. Nothing too direct. They'll know something's wrong.
if this
Could this possibly be picked up by other members of the Congress? And would this go against, to the point of almost, I don't know, maybe a war with the Arcane Congress if they were to find out something like this had happened?
Yes,
I don't know their structure, so I don't know how they would react. I will say that detecting the alterations that I'd be able to make, assuming things work, would be just as difficult as someone trying to detect the alterations I was offering to make to your mind. Powerful casters might be able to discern such a thing, but the number of them in this world are few and far between.
Consider this. They will return to the Arcane Congress and they will give a report of our country. Right now, that report will be rather bad. Perhaps you could merely give them a rosy tint on their memories of us and their time in the country. It would do for us better for the Arcane Congress to think of us as favorable, having entertained them well.
Altering memories.
Also,
Altering memories that are similar to ones that actually transpired is easier and lasts longer than whole cloth fabrication. I imagine they've already suffered sour experiences here, and you can take those emotions and link them to other actual things that had transpired. Had they had positive experiences here so far, or even so much as a conversation that went well?
I'm
I
unwilling
had a
to
good
believe.
conversation with them when I came back. I was more than amicable.
Perhaps altering the conversation you had with them to saying that it was had with the three of you, and tying the negative conversation or whatever it was that transpired to gain their ire with a different experience would do that. The emotions are real, but what triggered those emotions would be the fallacy.
Also, just to put this in perspective, if we do decide to go down this road, I believe it may be best for you to erase our memory of this conversation from ever happening. So if anything did get picked up and for some reason we were paid a visit by the Arcane Congress and they tried to find anything, there would be nothing to find.
He
This
nods.
is true. Perhaps. I appreciate.
Go ahead, you first.
I appreciate the power you have to offer. Is there not some way we could continue our recent trend of two birds with one stone? These people will need to visit Held Gwen. Both of these memories will be entwined with Idir. Correct? Their good and their bad memories will be with Idir. You can simply adjust the first meeting they had to make it, yeah, because I say simply, yeah. To adjust the first meeting so that the first meeting they had was with the three of us. It went reasonably, not over amicably, but we were compliant. And the second meeting they had with us was actually in Hald Gwen with their leaders.
Because the span is days as opposed to all encapsulated, it's difficult, but it can be done. That is a brilliant idea. To continue with the notion of brilliant ideas, I'm offering this because I think it's the best way of keeping yourselves safe. However, there is one of you three that doesn't need what it is that I'm offering because they are already ignorant. I do not need to alter the mind of Valoran because he hasn't a clue. But that doesn't mean a clue should not be left. if I'm going to take these memories from you and the citizens here and to alter the memories of the two of them, then my suggestion would be to leave something for Valoran to discover at some time in the future. Maybe not now, maybe years from now, however it is you choose to leave it behind. So his unaltered mind would not be so willing to reject whatever it is that he discovers. And you would never lose the wisdom of this conversation and this experience with that, while also not gaining the dangers of having the knowledge in any of your minds.
Very well. One, I think this is the best plan, and thank you for stopping me.
One just sort of sighs, and he kind of looks dejected because he feels like he shouldn't have stopped you, but kind of felt like he had to say something just to, yeah.
He says, for this to play out, for hopes of this to play out exactly as you would like, it'll work much more easily if they are asleep. These kind of manipulations of one's mind work best when the mind is already distracted by a shifting landscape of things seemingly impossible happening at every moment, and the mind is otherwise at ease, distracted. The link between their two minds is a bit intimidating in the sense that the landscape will have to be shifted beneath two pairs of feet instead of one. But it can still be done.
In that case, I will go back down, and I will explain that one has cautioned me against my hot-headed ways. I will apologize and say that I'm but young, prostrate myself in front of them, and ask that they stay the night, that we may make up for what I have done.
Well, in that case, perhaps you should go so far, if you're going to be prostrating yourselves, as to doing whatever it is that they asked. Even if it's not true. Even just so that they can witness it take place. Because it gives me another memory that's raw, natural, and real, unadulterated, for them to carry with them home.
Very well. I'll do my best to make this easy for you.
He nods appreciatively and says, and speaking of making things easy for one another, I've completed it. The magics have been linked, and it is fully functioning. Please, do you have it with you? He says, looking about the two of you in the throne room to see where that little chest might be.
Yeah, I should imagine the box is left in the map room. Like, we opened it, we're like, it's a box, great. And like, it's just been left. Oh, right, yeah. Like, brushes some dust off
it. He says, do me a favor. Ponder of the box. Focus on it. Imagine it. As if it were here.
Okay. It's right there.
And well, guess what? It is I just realized we're still on the combat screen instead of the chatty one. So all of a sudden when you do that, it literally appears on the ground. The same exact chest, the same exact little chest, but like much larger, beautiful, ornate, so on and so forth. This chest itself is probably worth thousands of gold for how beautifully ornate and everything it is, how well carved it is right there in front of you. It's a gorgeous chest.
So, should we open it? I mean, this is really quite impressive, but like...
He gestures to it.
It's not gonna eat me.
Unfunny one, it is centered. It's centered for the overlay, 1080 by 40. 1080 not by 40. 1080 overlay. That's 1080 down. I forget what it is this way. 19 something, whatever it is. It is centered. It is centered. It's properly centered. Not your weird, cockeyed, weird centery awkwardness. 1920, thank you. It is centered. You're wrong. Be wrong.
Let's open the chest.
So as you approach the chest, you don't even have to open it. Literally, as you approach it, it opens slightly, and then as you get closer, it finishes opening up. And within the chest, you find a bucket full of goodies. I mean, you found little stashes of goodies here and there, but nothing like this. I mean, this is a lot of shit in front of you. I mean, like, just all in one small... The sheer number of potions and scrolls. There's even, like, a pair of, like, nice-looking furry boots inside there. And it's just... It's incredible the amount of stuff inside this chest.
Wow, well, this is something. Where did you come by all of this?
It doesn't matter where it came from. It matters that it's here for you.
That's really suspicious from a guy who knows how to alter people's minds.
There is this chest that you hold is a link between here and elsewhere. Not this world, but another. I don't know how much they taught of interplanar realities in your basic foundation schooling of. And he kind of like gestures towards you, kind of like, I'm kind of grasping at. He's like, you can see as the frustrated something that's about to try to explain quantum physics to a 6-year-old, like, you know, like he's hoping that you can at least give him something.
Right. I get it. It's here and it's there.
While it's there, it acts as a bit of a net. Imagine like you're throwing not a net inside of a still lake, but instead a net inside of a flowing river, where fish just happen to go downstream and get caught within it. Things just get caught within this net, and they're stored for at least some time within this chest. It was very difficult to work out the magics, but it worked. When it's not here, it is elsewhere. Now, understands that the same net that catches these things and pulls them in can also, at occasion, release things and let them go. Not so much so that you need to be worried that things are just going to disappear. It is also meant to act as a bit of a storage device, where you can place stuff in and not have to worry about it. You can have it with you without having to carry it on your person. You can see the size of the chest. It can hold anything as you imagine that something of these dimensions would be able to hold. And you look inside the chest, it's massive. Like, one could hop in there, close it up, and now one is elsewhere.
One was thinking actually about that, and he would say, what happened if someone were to get in the chest and close it?
Absolutely. Where it goes to, the chest is sealed completely, airtight in every way. So, when you send it wherever it is that it's going, you don't have to worry about what might be where it goes. But you have to understand that the only air you bring with you is the air that you bring with you. If you were to do such a thing, you better hope someone brings you back soon, which, I should warn you, when you call the chest to you, you may do so as often as you like, but no more so than once a day. Not linked to the rising and setting of the sun, but it's the passing of 24 hours from the moment that it's closed and vanishes.
I see.
Thank you. This is a kingly gift.
Indeed.
Now I believe I have to go and beg to some gnomes.
He nods. I imagine, do you close the chest?
Yeah.
So, you close the chest, and as you close the chest, it's one of those things where it's the first time you close it. So, I mean, you literally pick up the chest. It's a heavy lid because it's a large chest. As you go to, close the chest, you lift it, and then as you're applying pressure down, or more or less moving along with it, it's gone. It's, oh, it's gone. Okay. And then you kind of, let that surprise pass you. Yeah.
He flips a little chest in his hand, catches it, puts it in his bag.
And you go to speak to the gnomes. Down you go.
Rayron would motion for one to take a seat.
One sits.
And then he would head down and open the door for the gnomes to come in.
So one stays up here. Gotcha. So the one, you notice that he's still standing there, and he's watching out the door. You might be as well, but all you see is down the hall. He's watching out the door, and you can tell just by looking at his facial expression, because he still has normal parent facial expressions. that it looks as though he's intently watching something.
Oh, the
The
Valorant
nameless
guy.
one. Yep, the nameless guy.
Yeah.
So you go down there, you take your seat in your throne, I imagine, and call for the door to be opened?
No. Rayron goes down there. He motions for one to sit in his throne.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then goes
I thought
and
one was
opens the
being
door.
left in the map room. That's what one and I both
There's
thought.
no reason.
Oh.
No, there's no reason.
No, I would go with him.
Okay. And then you go and you open the door, so he stays behind. And I should say, if you're leaving the throne room, he'll actually just kind of like go to leave the throne room with you, but like as he steps through the doorway, he instead steps out of existence. And as he's always done a bunch of times before him, but not always through the doorway, usually just a step. And you guys go down. You open the door, and the gnomes are standing there. They're having a conversation with one another in gnomish, but it stops immediately as the door opens up, and they both turn like in unison towards you.
Excuse me, gentlemen. We've finished our deliberations. If you might come in.
Thank you, says one of the two. It's hard to differentiate which one's which. You know of the robes colors, and Neil, you heard how I described the robes before, correct? One is so dark of purple, it looks as though it's black, and the other was so dark of red, it looks as though it's black. One of them has, I think it's silver tassels on it, and the other one has, I think it's golden tassels on it. So anyways, they come in, they walk towards you. The one that you've identified as being the nicer of the two, he's the one that actually has the
Red and gold.
Yep, actually, yes, red and gold is the one that comes in, and sorry, he says, "Thank you, thank you, it's much appreciated." And the two of you go walking in after you. Where do you stand?
In front of them, not hugely far, but he doesn't go up the steps.
Okay, and I'll let you take over. They just stand there waiting.
Now, I believe, gentlemen, I owe you an apology.
Roll me a perception or sense motive, your choice, once you say that. Because your tone is obviously very different. One. Hold on. Hold on. Sense motive or perception. And what were you going to ask?
I would just be watching their reaction, so when I can roll for watching them.
Yeah, sense motive.
Is that...
Or perception, he said.
No, either one.
Where's sense motive is better for me.
Okay. And then after he rolls, Neil, I need one more thing from you. And you wow, that's a good roll. Sorry, good modifier. Neil, could you roll me a bluff check for everything you're about to say? Role play? Are you gonna role play it? It's just how believable it is. Because you're technically bluffing.
Please roll luck. If that gets to 30, please.
Okay, fine. I'm doing it.
Oh my god.
Yes.
There we go.
All right, and I'm almost done, and then we'll get into this, okay? I reduced both of your results of the sense motives by 1.
Okay.
Okay. So, anyways, Neil, you, as soon as you start speaking, you can see that, who is it? Specifically one, you can see that their facial expressions, you didn't notice that they were hardened before, but they immediately start to soften as his bluff is so fucking believable. You know what I mean? Like, you are my son. So there's facial expressions soften a bit. You hadn't noticed that were even hardened at the moment anyways. Go ahead, Neil. Take over.
I am young and from Amulta. I am not particularly fond of the Arcane Congress. And I, myself, don't like them. However, I must do what's best for my people. And what's best for my people is the safety that the Arcane Congress provide. And as such, I would like to apologize for my earlier words, spoken in the arrogance of youth. And I would like to invite you to stay for dinner tonight as a way of apology. I would also request, as a member of a multa, I'm not particularly schooled in the laws of the Arcane Congress, that we might retire to the library, where you might inform me of some of your more important laws. It seems only fair that I, as chosen of the Quill, would be knowledgeable about the laws of the land. I hope this goes some way in suggesting my repentance over this matter.
They gobble that shit up. Gum, 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 gum. Like, I'm sorry, you got a 31 bluff check on these guys. Like, one of them's a diviner, like literally a diviner. What he does is he finds the truth in matters, and he's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, 100% believe you." So they, once you say that, they're both kind of nodding.
Rayron bows when he says repentance.
Yep, they're both nodding with understanding. The more aggressive of the two, Deep Purple, of the two says and during our time here, you'll be writing these into the laws fully?
Yes, I wondered perhaps you might assist me in the matter.
The other one says, oh, absolutely. I'd be more than happy to assist you in doing so, and in educating you as to why it is that these laws are of significance. We look not, as your previous suggestions had stated, to lord over others, ruling with unjust and iron fists simply because we want to put our sway over other nations. We look for the safety of all people across all of Eroth. One person's mistake can have devastating consequences towards everyone else that lives in these lands. Be more than happy to educate you in why it is that this is of significance, why it is certain magics are allowed and aren't, and why it is that we use the punishments we do when these laws are broken. Thank you, thank you for offering for us to stay inside of your home. We will humbly accept your offer. We will be leaving tomorrow evening. This gives us just over 24 hours time ourselves to complete this task.
Excellent. Perhaps you would like a tour of the castle proper before we begin?
No, thank you. We have no interest in the general goings-on of this nation or the prosperity of its people, simply that they are not a danger to those around them.
Rayron smiles and says, excellent. Straight to work then.
Nods, and then you go off with him. One, do you say or do anything, or you just let him go off on his own?
One doesn't say shit.
Okay.
He sits there and he watches and he assesses, and then he sits there after they're gone and just is like, well, shit. Just nods to himself, and he might go in the map room and see if that guy's still in there.
Well, it's actually as they leave, you don't even have to go into the map room. You probably have already stood up and kind of like watched after they left and going where they're going. He would actually just kind of like step out next to you. You know what I mean? Just kind of like step and appear next to you and be like, well, he's going to be busy for a while, and I think we're going to be busy as well. We want to hit all people that may have encountered them. For that to work, I'm going to need some focal points. And for me to do that, I'm going to need your assistance and permission. You have brilliantly located the shrines of your gods on opposite corners of Kurzfall. Opposite corners, with the fourth corner being taken up by the castle. If I were to use these 4 locations as the focuses, we should be able to hit all persons within a many-mile radius of this area, and certainly the densely grouped people that live within Kurzfall itself.
One nods. Okay.
We're going to have to place some runes inside each of the temples, as well as the castle. Would you mind accompanying me so you can show me where the best place to place these runes, where they will not be noticed?
And what do they do again?
The runes are going to act as an amplifier for the magics that I'm going to be using to succeed in our task.
Can they be removed after?
They can be, but they are designed with. They can be, yes.
Very well.
I also need to know which room they're going to be staying in, or rooms if it's going to be separate. perhaps I should place the runes there first, since it's their mines that are going to be the more difficult one.
Sure. One would probably know where the guest rooms are or whatever, and yeah. So tell him.
Do you assign
go
them
there?
one room or two?
Two, because it's only polite. Why would you presume they would sleep in the same room and it would weaken their ability to defend each other, right?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Two. Yep.
Okay. So you point out the two rooms. I guess this one and this one. He goes in there, and you can actually watch the runes that he's placing there. So what he does is he doesn't have like any chalk or anything like that he uses. He goes over to like the wall between the two rooms and says, I'm going to have to ask, do you have any tapestries that you can pull to these rooms? I'm going to have to put markings on this wall here, and we don't want them to be so obviously seen. I'll throw magics to perhaps hide the markings for the casual viewer, but also something to physically block them as well.
Yes, well, you know best in this matter. Do any of the guest rooms already have like tapestries and like furnishings that are
Yeah. You guys spent a good amount of money crafting this castle and everything. It's like it's like you're infinitely wealthy, but you know you got stuff here. You got some stuffs. So you go and probably send for servants of the castle, subjects of the castle, to go and procure such things. And you can see the way he ends up doing it. He's like looking over the wall from both sides and so on and so forth, looking over the bed, kind of like looking in the corners of the room and everything, just trying to discern what he thinks is the best way. And then at one point in time, he finally goes over to the wall, and you can see he kind of gets his hands together. It almost looks like he's praying. If you were a casual observer, you would think he was praying, but as far as you know, he's not a religious person. He doesn't have any faith that he's ever expressed or anything like that. So he puts his hands together and rests his head almost within them, just barely not touching. He seems to be focusing for a little while, and then as he pulls his hands apart, you can see that one of his hands is glowing with like a deep, 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 deep red, and the other's glowing with like a deep, 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 deep purple. And he hold on. Nope, sorry, with a deep, 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 deep red, and the other one with a deep, deep, deep gold color. And he reaches out and he touches the wall where he's going with the tapestry. And you can start seeing scrawling around where his hands happen to be in the center of is like this big arcane circle with all these crazy designs and markings on them, things that you could even begin to understand if you wanted to. And then spidering off of all of those is like a network of other much smaller network of like webbings and circles and stuff like that. After that all seems to be in place and continuing to glow, the circle itself glowing, everything else not really having much of a glow, just settling on the wall. He then goes over to the bed, to where the bed is, and lifts up the pillow, and right on the mattress he places one hand and the other on top of it, and like his left on top of his right, and you can see like there's another circle that appears there, and then all of a sudden the entire spidering effect on all the walls, ceiling, and floor disappear, and it just leaves the runes. Then he kind of places his hand over it, one of his hands over it, says a simple incantation, and that rune disappears, and throws the pillow on top of it, does an incantation over the pillow. Then he goes over to the wall, does an incantation onto the wall, that one disappears, and has the tapestry put back up there by your servants, does an incantation on the tapestry, and then goes to the other room, does kind of the same exact thing on the other side, but his hands, which color is carrying which color is actually opposite, which hand he places over the other one is actually opposite, but does otherwise the same exact thing, so he ends up incanting like about a dozen spells, it seems like. Go ahead.
He would say to him, Can they detect this the same way Valor and Rayron detect magic?
I'm sorry, what was that?
He asked the
Can they use detect
guy.
magic? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more or less.
He says yes and no. Simply leaving behind a magical aura is something that they would detect, but there is a spell that was crafted by a brilliant mage many eons ago that learned a way to throw off the scent of someone simply trying to detect magics. That's actually why I needed the tapestry. I can hide it from the casual observer, but I needed something to physically cover the area that is itself enchanted with the means to throw off the scent of detecting the magics itself.
Very well.
And so I utilized that. The pillow will act in the bed well enough, as the sheets over it and the like. It's a general area of magic that I put there. If they were a keen observer, they might be able to see through it. And beyond that, again, my magic is something that might be a bit more difficult for them to pierce, but they don't seem too great of fools. So let's dot our I's and whatnot. He then goes to the different like throughout the castle to an area you think is best in the castle, probably in the basement or something like that, not the map room, and goes to the different temples, and you can point out the best areas in the temples, and he does it all there. Where do you think is the best spot in Vrogar's temple? Where do you feel is the best spot?
Do I feel any strange sensations or anything in the temple when I'm with this guy?
He doesn't. He doesn't make you feel tingly in the naughty zones. No.
Okay. Geez. Just somewhere probably out of the way. That, it probably isn't really accessed by, worshippers.
Okay, awesome. So behind the altar or in the back room or something like that. Cool. So he does exactly what in this one, he throws the disguise from visual, but doesn't throw up the additional one to hide magical auras or anything like that. Doesn't throw that in there because it's not necessary. Just throws it away from the casual observer.
Yep. So he would ask him again that these will be disposed of afterwards. Because you're taking my memory, right?
I am taking your memories as part of doing this. I will do the best I can to dispose of them afterwards. Again, they can be removed. It's not an easy task. But understands, one, your interests, your best interests are what I have in mind.
You haven't let us down so far. However...
And don't intend to in the future.
He says, however... if it's possible, start here first.
What do you mean by that? My apologies.
Like, if it's possible to remove it.
Oh, remove from here first. Oh, my apologies. Yeah. He understands that, of course, and he'll actually kind of slightly chuckle and say, "By Vrogar's will."
Bunch of snots.
And so, happy with the work they did. He actually, for the first time that you've seen in a long while, genuinely looks drained. Like, just drained. Like, you could almost see, like, his skin looks a bit aged compared to what it was when he first came into the chamber and you were calling from whatnot. He actually looks drained, and he says, "I'll be finishing everything else this evening while everybody rests. It'll work easier that way. And that's for you."
Will you have enough energy?
I'll be fine. Sleep tonight. Sleep well.
Last thing. You said about leaving something for Valorant.
That's between...
Are you able to arrange that?
Nope, that's going to have to be between you and Rayron. You're going to have to leave something before you go to bed tonight. And some means for him to find it. I suggest being discreet, convoluted, make it difficult. You don't want him coming across it too easily. Let's see, Valorant. Leave it right inside the inside cover of his favorite's tome. He'll never look there.
Might he look there all the time?
We're talking about
It's
Valorant. He'll probably just assume it. He'll look past it. It's Valorant. It's right under his nose.
Very well.
He said it as a bit of a joke, but unfortunately, one is so like built up in the moment. Like, there's so much shit going on. He's offered his mind. He just watched a symbol put in Vrogar's temple, and the joke unfortunately fell over.
Yeah. Okay,
Don't insult my friend.
Yeah, let's arrange it.
That's how many I still have left, because I blame Neil. So, Neil, they gobble it up. You know what I mean? They gobble it up left and right. You work with them. You actually call in your scribes. They literally do exactly what you're asking them to, and to draft a copy of the laws being written together and so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. You would inform them that these 2 rooms, not 1 but 2 rooms, are where will always be their rooms when they come back in the future. These are their rooms where they're welcome to stay. Because remember, you're supposed to have a spot in for them. I think you're muted, so I can't understand what you're saying anyways.
Nah. I said 2 rooms? They're allowed 2 rooms now because they're guests of honor, but they only get 1 room because that's what the law dictates. So they're only supposed to have a single room.
The grumpier one will seem he's not much grumpier. He wasn't beforehand, but he has become that way since he's this arrival here. How things played out here. He seems like really, like you're gonna, But the other one's like absolutely. He almost thinks it's funny. Like you're like, oh, you're my guest, so I'd be more than happy to give you the other room, but by word of your law, you know what I mean? Like, and so he actually thinks it's funny. Either way, it all plays out swimmingly. They eventually fuck off to bed. They're casters. They need time to rest, and that's when one would come a knocking. Excuse me, sir. We still have a task.
Raren,
1.
would you join me in the map room, please?
Yeah, sure.
We walk back down to the map room, close the door. Everything's in place.
Went
Everything
well.
but yes. You had me believing you.
Yes, I think perhaps we'll use this iteration of laws for now so that we're adherent to what they want.
Yes. We have the matter of Valoran's little surprise to attend to. He suggested leaving something in Valoran's favorite tome.
But he'd look in there.
That's what I said.
It was meant as a joke. Because he's so
One
spacey.
stupid
Like okay, because he's so spacey. It was like what
You could leave a note that leads to another note, but have the first note wrapped up in a lady's underwear in his drawer. He'd never touch that.
No. It's not. I don't understand why this guy just can't tell Valoran about it in like a year or 2.
Yeah, that would be nice. God.
But he seems insistent that we leave him some type of little thing.
Perhaps. Ghost.
you say ghost.
Oh, the old ghost.
No response.
Ghost dude.
No response.
He seemed extremely drained.
Right. Yes, but he can go to any of them. We can't. Couldn't he simply leave a note explaining the situation in the one that's currently, oath bound that we can't go to it?
That would be great.
That would
however,
be great.
I don't think he's up to it for some reason.
Out of game though, he doesn't respond. It's funny. He doesn't respond. You could always give one of your subjects the task of doing such a thing without informing them that that's what they're doing.
Fine. What if he goes and dies though? Oh, well, I guess we'd task a messenger to go up there and find the map room equivalent to this one and hide it in there.
Okay.
Rayrim would also write this note in Old Mole.
Oh, hello. So you're really having fun with this. And then, without having to tell me word for word what this letter says, what do you generally tell him?
Made a boo-boo. Had to fix. Arcane Congress. Gnomes are dicks.
Speak to old man.
Speak to old man. Memory wipe. Fucked Held Gwen.
But feel the hype.
Sleep well tonight.
Sweet prince.
So it's
Boom.
not a shitty poem. You actually write details, but
No, I do a shitty poem.
oh man. Okay, so you leave a shitty poem. Valorant probably think it's a good poem. Like, oh, wow, there's a really good rhythm to this. And so you guys end up go.
Come on.
You guys end up going to bed tonight.
I'm leaving a cryptic note for someone. I gotta make it in poem, right?
Of course, yeah. You guys end up going to bed tonight. You lie down. You go to sleep. The next morning, when you wake up, you remember that it's time for you to grab your force and head out to the Owlbear's cave. You've got a job in front of you. You have an important task that needs to be handled. And
it's fine. My parasite has recalled this memory. It's like having an SSD on my back.
Oh yeah, is that how it works?
Yeah.
What parasite? And so
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So my apologies. You join together with your forces, grab your horses, start heading north, henceforth, to the Owlbear Cave. Because murder you crave. Oh God, now you have me doing it. So yep. That next session we will literally pick up with the two of you traveling to the Owlbear Cave to enact the plan. Some of your soldiers heading south, some heading west, and some of you heading north to trigger this Owlbear. Cool.
Good.
Fun.
You know, I
Love
didn't
it.
even intend for that to be a poem. It's just this old mole, you know, it just brings out the poet in Rayron.
You're a poet and you just didn't realize it.
And it just took an ancient dead language for me to know.
All right, cool. Well, that's that, boys. It's 1 o'clock in the PM, and Neely Boy has a session in 55 minutes. So, I guess we're gonna have to come to close for our session today. Before we go into who we are and whatnot, I just want to remind everybody that you can impact stuff going on over on Patreon. We've certainly seen the impact of what's happened in the past two Patreon sessions in Regicide and in this campaign. It has been a lot of fun. I want to remind everybody that if you are an active member of the community and a Twitch subscriber, you are welcome to join us for our new Kingdom campaign that's going to be taking place on Tuesday nights, DM'd by Unfunny One, but with me as a PC that'll be there every session. While the other PCs will kind of rotate out based off story, so on and so forth, I will be PCing with everybody every week, so I can always be there and have fun. Details about that are already kind of written in there. More details coming soon for the rules for character generation. Some of those charge-ins will happen on stream. Others will just kind of like follow the guidelines, and we'll kind of like simply double check. Everything's pretty easy for you to make them. I will always give this heads up because it's streamed. Don't be a piece of shit. I mean, I fucking cuss all the time, and I certainly make jokes about shoving my face between Neil's cheeks and stuff like that, and that's all good and well. But because it is on stream, there are certain things that you should just not say. Because then I have to like interrupt the stream in the middle of you saying words, and it makes everybody go, well, you're a douche. Nobody wants to be that way. So join the community, become a subscriber, have fun in the campaign. I already know Josh has some awesome stories set up for us, and I can't wait to play them. And I'm curious to see which of our cast members in the various shows come over and play with us as well. See what kind of characters they create and how different they are, except for Neil, how different they are from the current one. You're going to be what? Neil playing Neil in another game? Oh. He's going to play a 7 charisma character. So anyways, awesome. Well, then, Neil, talk to us so you can get the fuck out of here.
Hi, guys. I apparently am a poet. I'm the best poet. So you should follow me on Twitter at @Nakai_. Or join Discord and @ me at Nakai. I hope you had fun today. I did. And you can join me in under an hour on twitch.tv/OllieRan, where I play a character who is an arrogant asshole, but lovable. So, yeah. See me then.
Bye-bye. And then... Ooh, hi. How you doing? Good?
Oh, God, you can hear, like, mouth noises.
Come on. Jake, who are you?
I thought you were going to come up here, Jay.
Oh, no. Hi, Tesh. Will you get back in your frame? Get back in your frame.
Oh, dear.
I'm Jake.
Poor Tesh.
I'll see you next week.
All right. And you guys know where you can find me and all the places and all the things and all the stuff. And Maggie's show is fun and stuff like that. I won't be on Maggie's show next week, but all of our show, because I'll be at Maine again. I won't be on Maggie's show on Monday, in case you didn't already know that. But I will be here for all of our games. So I'll be here for
So
Wednesday and
you're
Thursday.
here for the main event.
Goodbye, everybody. Fucking Neil. Do you hear how much he's laughing at his own joke? Like, he's laughing at his own joke so much.